Today we've got something that nobody's asked for, and to my knowledge nobody else has done, because I don't imagine there are a bunch of people who own two odd high-end luxury vehicles from 1978 that are this opposed yet similar in price class and are going to pit them together in equal states of disrepair. Let's start with the home field advantage, the large Lincoln Continental, the American land yacht. I've done a rattle can repaint, and you can see here the original color to an extent on the headlight doors that are even right now fighting against vacuum to open back up. For a low budget car, the paint job that it's received now is on par with what one can expect for a vehicle of this value. It's enough to preserve it and keep it from getting worse. Inside, well, I've made all of the lights work. I've disconnected the seat controls for fire safety. The interior is not holding up well. I have pieces pulled from various bits of service work, the crumbling remains of a broken dash there, but we do have working gauge lights now. And interestingly enough, if you go by the odometers, this car's around 50,000 miles, this car's around 88,000 miles. Neither of them have held up extraordinarily well. I believe this car to be accurate for mileage just from the high predominance of parts under the hood that are still original to Ford Motor Company. You don't get a car like this to 150,000 miles and still run the original 1978 spark plugs. The wear on the seat is also fairly consistent. Given that this car belonged to an elderly woman, it's no surprise that she stamped off the ring on the brake pedal and wore the edges of it. But the body is nice and straight, and we will go under the hood. Again, pardon the shaky angle, to further highlight what I mean by original components. The windshield washer fluid that works is still intact. The cap is good. These are now new spark plug wires, but these stickers, the markings on the block, are all consistent with original 1978 components. AC hoses, stickers here for the cruise control. It's got a replaced brake master, original windshield wiper motors, decal on fans. Again, clean markings on the valve covers. All of the stickers are in good shape, and it had original belts on several of the components when I acquired it. This is very likely a 50,000 mile car. Going away from the under hood areas, we make our way into the cabin of this vehicle. There you can see the mileage. Now, thanks to my repairs, the fuel gauge works. Before we get a copyright flag, the stereo works, the gauge lights work, and the automatic lights work. AC does not work, but yep, the vent sort of works. Defroster does, sunroof does work. Actually, this is technically a moonroof on this car. That right there being the difference. Whoops. And I just decided to hurl my phone into the back seat. I will edit that bit out. The Lincoln runs nice and smooth. You can see the fuel gauge work, and now the miles to empty gauge works. Compared to the Mercedes, a larger portion works on this car. We will now move over to the Mercedes. This vehicle has had a better quality of care in its life. The original paint, while faded, was never rattle-canned in someone's attempt to make a hot rod out of it. If we look at the back seat, I had to replace it because the gasket here has so poorly deteriorated that water would run in, ran down, and rusted out the back seat. I have to replace that. It is on my list of things to do. Shoo, grasshopper, please go. No, out of the car. If we move to the driver's seat of the Mercedes, it says 87,996 miles. And once the glow plug light is off, it starts up and runs very well. It has a weird issue with the fuel sending unit where it will not turn off the low fuel light. I was just driving this one too to pull it into position, so it is at temperature. But like any Mercedes from the era, the odometer does not work. Mercedes did this inanely stupid thing where if you hit the reset, sorry, that's the dimmer switch. Hit the reset button here while the car is operational, it will break the odometer. Simply wonderful. But the sunroof works. This is a proper sunroof because it has the padded cover. The seats have not held up nearly as well, and I believe this one to be original as well because it contains a Becker Europa stereo, which might be capable of picking up a station if the antenna weren't snapped off and in the glove box. On this one, I had to rewire the resistor switch so that way I actually have lights at night. The passenger mirror refuses to stay in adjustment, and none of the windows work. If you're familiar with Mercedes of this era, it has absolutely terrible design for a climate control system that obviously does not work, and likely has not worked since George Bush Sr. was in office. Sunroof is now closed. It has great oil pressure, and it has that weird thing Mercedes did where for some reason whenever the car is operational, oil pressure is always pegged on the gauge. I have never understood that, but Mercedes, there's a lot they do that I don't understand. Little things here like the idle control for the engine doesn't work. Cruise control doesn't work. Wiper sprayer. The wipers work, sprayer does not. None of the HVAC controls work. Only half the dash lights up. And all of the windows are off track. Yeah, lovely. It makes it for real fun driving in the summer of Texas heat. What's interesting about that is when you compare these two cars, they were both around the same price. $25,000 in 1978 got you your choice of this turbo diesel Mercedes sedan or Diamond Jubilee Lincoln Mark V. And despite the fact they're in the same price range and competing for the same buyers, they really could not be more diametrically opposed cars. The Mercedes, though it's an exclusive vehicle for the European market, or North American market, it was exclusively limited from the European market. It's a 116 platform, the S-Class, in turbo diesel. Diesels at the time were not popular cars in America, whereas the Mark V is on the same shared platform as the Thunderbird and is a very common offering from Ford. The Mark series being a long-running, long-established brand, and this is the second year of the Mark V. It's a conventional box frame car. Both of these vehicles have disc brakes all around, front and rear. The Mercedes is unibody and are extremely prone to rust, whereas the Mark V's, their biggest rust concern, and as you can see it's starting to form here, is from the vinyl tops, which do not hold up at all. So, I guess the next step with these two cars is to compare them on the road and see how they handle and which environment they are best suited for. Now we are going to try the same thing in the Mercedes. I'd like to note that for comparison purposes, the speedometer on the Mercedes reads approximately 10 miles an hour low compared to the Lincoln, which GPS tracked is accurate. So let's see how fast we can get this up to and stop before the trash cans. Wow. Immediately it comes to obvious attention that the acceleration is better on the Mark V, but the brakes are substantially better on this Mercedes. In the event of a panic stop, you would definitely prefer to be in the Mercedes to the Mark V. Aside from the loud wind noise, sorry about that, the window needs to be put back on its track. I just wanted to show this off. We're cruising here on the open highways of Houston. Most of the lights working, obviously half of the gauges are out. 60 on the speedometer is 65 in practice. The odometer doesn't work because it's a late 70s Mercedes. But this stretch of like the Texas highway here, these slow, lolling expanses of highway, concrete as far as you can see, bland, structureless buildings, the soulless modern world. This is where driving a 46-year-old diesel Mercedes is one of the nicest experiences you can have. It's a smooth, comfortable car. The S-Class chassis has tight suspension, comfortable rides, because somehow, despite the fact that they make you pay money to be on these roads, they're still rough and unpleasant. It's a nice way to enjoy it, and it reminds you of what these cars were all about when new. Smooth rides, moderately decent power. I mean, I can step on them. Yes, let me get away from this. Oh, I can step on the pedal and she climbs a bit. Obviously, I'm not going to go blazing past the police. Not that you're really going to go blazing past too much of anything. Power in one of these cars is adequate. It moves it around at a comfortable pace. And it won't leave you disappointed. Fuel economy, though, that's where these things shine. I've put, about 150 miles on the car today, and it's just budged off a quarter tank a bit, and that's not even that accurate. It shows completely empty when there's still about 5 gallons left. So when I hit 10, or the halfway mark, instead of using 10, I've probably used about 7. So I've used maybe 4 gallons of gas now at this point. Yeah, I'm getting, I don't know exact numbers. Anyway, I get consistently around 27, 28 miles per gallon. Which out of a little diesel like this, and just cruising down the road, is really quite nice. It's a comfortable car that reminds you of a simpler time, and at the same era, you can also feel the European luxury. It's smooth, pleasant. Little droning hum from the diesel motor is unique, and you get used to it and find it comforting. It makes up for the horrible, horrible gremlins of 1970s and 1980s German electronics. Like, the cruise control doesn't work, the AC doesn't work, the heating system is a god-awful nightmare. If you were familiar with these, you know what I'm talking about. For a long-distance highway driver, for open stretches of road before you, this car has the obvious lead. Alright, we're down here at the end of this street, and we're going to see what all-out this Mark V will do. That's not too shabby. We're now going to try the exact same test with the Mercedes. How fast it can get up to and stop before the trash cans. Now, if you want to know where driving a car like this Lincoln really shines, this is it. You find yourself one of these country 2-lane roads. If it starts with county roads, state highway, farm to market, any of these 2-lane little just cruising strips where the speed limit is just under that of the highway, and you have your hilly elevations, your mild, softly banked curves, and relatively unimpressive straightaways, that's where this car shines. The smooth floatiness of the sofa on wheels is really apparent in these small towns where the infrastructure to keep up and maintain the roads has not been spent on them in decades. And, you know, that's just fine. You're going down these roads, often stuck behind some big old piece of farm equipment like I am, just cruising along, checking your gauges. Fuel gauge is working now that I fixed it. Oh, hang on. I got this. Yeah, things like that. Where the power of the extra large big block is very helpful. You know, little things like that. You just put it to the test. You just kind of speed down and ponderously move in and out of the way of other vehicles. You plod along in your big old living room, just comfortable in the surroundings. You have the power to get you out of a bad situation like that, and you have the means to do so. And it's just comfortable. It's really just a joy to drive a car like this on this sort of road. A performance-tuned sports suspension would truly be lost. It'd be a waste on something like this. Because you'll hear people complain about these things. Oh, so much body roll, so much float, so much lack of feel in the steering. So, aside from me swerving out of the way of that piece of equipment that just decided to take the shoulder, there hasn't been a single reason to actually turn. You can see up ahead, there's no real curves. Body roll isn't an issue. when you're just cruising on some two-lane country blacktop. For there, something like a 4-barrel that you can just stamp and enjoy a little bit more power while you're floating along on padded seats is perfectly adequate. And that should give you some idea of what it's like owning and operating both of these cars. If you want me to pick a better vehicle of the two, or a best, a winner, it's really hard to do that because, again, they're just so different that they're both worth experiencing. If you have the chance and you've never driven a giant 1970s land barge before, by all means, take it and drive one. Conversely, if you ever get the chance to drive the rare 116 series diesel, do so. It's a very surprisingly nimble car, very competent. The Mark V highlights the peak of American land yachts. Insanely massive, just the stereotypical car that someone would expect for this era. It is disco. I have to walk back just to get all of the car in the shot, and I'm still walking back for a 2-door coupe. Personal luxury at its finest, when it was all about self-indulgence and comfort. Nobody ever did cars like these, like the American, like GM and Ford. GM with the Eldorado, Ford with the Mark series, and no one will ever make them like that again. So, if you're a European and you have a chance, get a Mark. If you're an American and you have a chance to pick up one of these Mercedes, do so. If you're fortunate enough to own both and drive them intermittently. Alternate between the two and make whatever type of entrance you want based on where you're going.